Folks, welcome in. It's NFL Week 14, the Irish NFL Show. Our proud sponsors, proud partners at Matchbook, Betting Exchange, joined by Brian O'Leary. I also joined by Sully from Matchbook. Boys, how are we getting on? Good?
Really good, Michael. Yeah, looking forward to week 14. Hope it's better than week 13 because we got our asses handed to us in a major way.
Yeah, these weeks are passing us by very quickly, but we're certainly into that stage of the season when we're looking at each game and how it, I suppose, reflects where we are going to be, where we're going to be come January with the playoff situation.
Absolutely. And Sully, I've seen you were chatting to the boys on the Matchbook NFL podcast and obviously on video as well. You were saying about week 13. Wasn't the best week, wasn't the best. I've had a shocking couple of weeks myself, but you were saying just before we go on a bit of breaking news there about the Bucs.
Yeah, so there was a bit of market resistance. We saw a lot of Buffalo money early on in the week. In the last hour, we're recording this towards the weekend. We obviously saw a lot of money for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to drive that line out from -3 to 3.5, which is a really key number in the NFL. Of course, we all know that. But to get that number from 3 to 3.5 takes a substantial amount of money.
Yeah, at the start of the week when I looked at the number, I felt it was quite low. I know the Bills were in the championship game last year, but the Bucs have kind of come back to form since the bye week, and the Bills are obviously coming off that difficult game on Monday night. I think one of the factors for this game will be late in the game. You know, they're gone from playing in a very difficult condition on Monday against the Patriots, where the weather was a bit erratic, and we don't see many games like that during the season. They're now gone down to play in Tampa, where the weather will be quite warm. So I wonder how much energy will be sapped come the fourth quarter, and that allows the Bucs to potentially move on and cover that line of 3.5.
I kind of go the other way on that, Brian, in the sense that I thought that Monday Night Football was absolutely tailor-made for the Patriots as opposed to the Bills. I know it's very strange to say that about a Bills side in Buffalo, but they're a passing offense. Yeah. They always were, like, for the last couple of years. And it really, like, obviously, Mac Jones threw the ball 3 times. You know, you're going to get a whole load of Tom Brady throwing the ball. And I think that actually matches up pretty well for the Buffalo defense. They're better against the pass than the run. So for me, I actually think this is actually a good matchup for the Bills. I'm not going to say that they're going to go far into the playoffs this year, but on this one, that money has scared me. I won't lie. I've already bet the Bills plus 3.5, but that money does slightly scare me. But I'd slightly lean Bills in this one.
High scoring game potentially.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's 53.5 for the over/under as well. Like that is it's a high scoring game, but it can happen so easy, boys, when you got Tom Brady and Josh Allen as well. And just in what you boys are saying, like the Bills will be feeling it after Monday night. If I was any member of that Buffalo team, I'd be itching to get back in the field again, but it should be a good game. Browns against the Ravens as well, Sully. So -2.5 favorites for the Browns, sitting at odds around 1.9 at the minute. This is really a really fascinating matchup.
Yeah, and look, I think the AFC North is such a kind of a funny division. I think a lot of people had high hopes going into the season that all of these teams would perform better, but their schedules for the AFC North against the other divisions and the other conferences this year are just really tough. And I really, looking at the AFC landscape, I can only see one team coming out of this to be in the playoffs. I can see 2 teams from each of the other divisions making that 7 that we have this year. But on this game, I think it's quite interesting the way the market has reacted here. A couple of weeks ago, this game was obviously only played in week 12. The Browns are coming fresh from that bye week straight into playing the Ravens again. So what better way to prepare for a team than having played them, then having a bye week so the coaches can do a whole lot of preparation, and then you play them again. And then also you've got the Ravens coming off an exceptionally bruising encounter against the Steelers. I think there's an opportunity here for the Browns to, I'm not going to say put an absolute beating on them, but for me, I think they'll win this game by at least 7. And, you look at a couple of other matchups within that. The offensive line for the Ravens, they've been struggling the last couple of weeks. I think Myles Garrett and Cole can do a bit of damage here as well. And, Marlon Humphrey being out for the Ravens is a massive blow. I'd be very interested to see how Wink Martindale adjusts his schemes in the back end in the secondary there, because I think they could be in a bit of trouble, albeit against a passing offense for the Browns that hasn't been too efficient in the last couple of weeks. But I think they get right here.
Yeah, I'm very keen on the under here. You look at the Ravens, 4 games in a row, they've not scored more than 20 points. The Browns have played 5 games this season where they haven't scored more than 20 points. Browns' offensive line is banged up. Conklin is out. Yeah. We saw last week in terms of Lamar Jackson how kind of inconsistent he's been throughout the season. They haven't done a 350-yard game, I believe, since they played the Chiefs. So it kind of, I could see a similar scenario to last week's duel between the Steelers and the Ravens, where this game might come down to the last drive, potentially, despite the Ravens' injuries on defense. But low-scoring game for me. I think this is an under.
I'm really excited for that game as well, and it's one where I think you're saying there, Brandon Sully, Baker Mayfield really needs to prove his worth over the next few weeks, and there's so many intriguing matchups with this weekend over the next 4 and 5. Look,
he's
next
proven for the last 3 years, Michael. I'm still waiting for him to do it.
Brian's
a big fan of Baker Mayfield.
Oh, I don't want to go there. No, he wouldn't be one for me. This contract, which is probably a conversation for another show, but this contract is kind of hanging over the Cleveland Browns' heads, and it's going to be a big decision further down the line. Mayfield needs to get over the hump against the Ravens. He's lost 4 games in a row. He's 5-1 in his career. That one victory came in Baltimore. I think it was week 2, maybe last year or the year before, where he actually ran riot. But since then, he's found things difficult against them. So he needs to rebound against this team.
Absolutely. The last game there we're going to look at before we maybe get our locks of the week, gentlemen. I'm putting these all on the spot in a second. 49ers at the Bengals. Obviously, you're talking about Baker Mayfield there. Jimmy Garoppolo has a lot of critics this season. But Cincinnati really coming into it over the last few weeks. They're hot and cold as well sometimes.
Yeah, I find it hard to pick a side in this game in terms of who's going to win it, be it the 49ers or the Bengals. But what I do expect is points and plenty of them. Currently at Matchbook.com, we have the line set at 49.5. I backed this at 48.5 early on in the week. Doesn't make a whole lot of difference there, in all honesty, with those. You get to 50-51, that kind of makes a difference in terms of key numbers. For me, you look at, like you just touched on there, Mike, with Jimmy G. Some of his metrics since week 7, that week 7 loss against the Colts in horrific conditions in Santa Clara, have been amazing. And I kind of look back to last week. I know a lot of people kind of get worried about the Seahawks loss last week, but I think they match up, this offense for the 49ers matches up exceptionally well against this Bengals defense, who are going to be missing a few guys as well. In their middle linebacker, his name escapes me, their main play caller, he's gone as well. So the flip side, I think that pinky finger by Mr. Burrow last week, I think they'll have enough time to adjust and maybe give him a couple of injections or a couple of Difene or whatever else he's going to take there. He'll be absolutely fine. San Francisco are kind of banged up in their secondary as well. So a total this number 49.5. The average score of all the games this season has been 46.5, 47. I can see this kind of going to the kind of mid-50s. I can expect plenty of points there, and currently at 2.04, it's just over even money at Matchbook.com. There's plenty of value on over 49.5.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is an over. Look, if Burrow has no effect from that injury last week, we should expect to see a game similar to what we've seen over the past few weeks. 6 of the last 7 games, they put up over 30 points, and the defense last week against the Chargers didn't play very well. And as you touched on there, there's key injuries now to the defense. Whilst they lost in Seattle last week, we saw performance and a half from Kittle. I'd expect to see something similar. Jimmy G actually is surprising a lot of people this season. For the quarterback that was under a lot of pressure going into the season with the Trey Lance scenario, I mean, he's kind of bailed it down and he's been having a really good season. And for me, the 49ers still are well within the hunt in terms of that playoff. It looks like a wild card because obviously the Cardinals, but like this game is a very difficult one to call. It's probably one of the games of the weekend in terms of picking who's going to win.
Yeah.
It's hard to gauge, but certainly points galore and an over here.
Points galore. Let's see. Before we look at the welcome offer, which is on screen, and talk a bit more about it, just finally, boys, locks of the week. So, have you got one that we haven't mentioned? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I cannot figure out how the Carolina Panthers are favored to too many teams at the moment. I'm not going to say Atlanta, by the way, are a really good team. They're not. But I think in the terms of the spot here, I back them straight up. I'm not even taking the 2.5 point handicap. You can back them at 2.4, which is just under even money at Matchbook.com currently. That to me is a cracking bet. I think you fired Joe Brady on an off week or whatever. I don't think it's going to make any difference. Cam Newton still can't throw the ball. He's not the player he was. They're missing obviously Christian McCaffrey as well. So I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see why they're favourites here. So it's a bit of a value bet for me in this one.
Well, anybody who watches the show knows that I have a love and affiliation for the New York Giants, but this weekend is an absolute crapshoot. We're going into LA against the Chargers for 10.5 points, and whilst that's a big line in the NFL world, it's either Mike Lennon or Jake Fromm, and I don't think either scenario is any good for us in the long run. Our defense has played quite well recently, and I could see a scenario where they play well again for a couple of quarters, but inevitably the Chargers will grind them down. And 10.5, I mean, you're looking at a 2-touchdown win, surely, for the Chargers. The only thing that will cost the Chargers is the Chargers, because we've seen this season in games where we expect them to cover and win games comfortably, they don't do it. And there's a concern around wide receivers, but it does look like Mike Williams is going to play. And if he's playing, at some stage, he's going to get the ball deep out from their great quarterback, Herbert. So for me, it's a 10.5. Yeah, I think the Chargers will win that by 2 touchdowns beyond.
I am genuinely taking the bias hat off here, and my lock is the Broncos against the Lions, but it's not the money line. It's the -10. It's 1.93. Now I know the Broncos had issues in Arrowhead on Monday night or on Sunday night, but Javonte Williams and an efficient enough defense should get them over the line with this. I think. No, my luck, that will then turn this on its head. But obviously, it's up to you boys, and we'll see that there. But that's mine. So it's going to be an interesting
a lot of money. Just before we wrap up there, Mike, a lot of money has come from Denver during the week. Because I'm not saying that's a lot, but I totally get that. Dan Campbell and Jared Goff or whoever starts there, one swallow doesn't make a summer. Let me tell you.
That line started 7.5, did it? Originally at the start of the week?
Yeah.
8, and it's gone up to 10, yeah.
I think the sharp money would have been on them very quickly, taking that 7.5.
Yeah, absolutely.
All it takes is one interception, and especially at Mile High, it can happen as well. Obviously, £15, €15 welcome offer. Money back as cash if your first bet loses with Matchbook. Bonus code is Irish NFL Show. All the T's and C's are here as well. Obviously, please, 18 plus. Be gamble aware, T's and C's apply. Brian, Sully, thanks a million again for the support of Matchbook, and we're enjoying this weekly bet. I'm hoping that at some point this year, Sully, Brian will send us some funds for coffee, but we're still
I'm saving it for the end of season party. Yeah.
Tough to make money on the NFL, guys, but we'll drive on regardless.
Yeah.
Cheers, lads.
Brian.